get to that power level in a Mustang, you got fucking race car problems. Hi friends, I wanted to make a video after seeing some of the issues that are brought to light on some of the forums when you add a centrifugal blower to a dry sump C7 car in regards to how the PCV is set up. The dirty side, the driver's side, is easy to take care of. You know, you look at the forums on that, you throw a Mighty Mouse can on it and it's done, you know, handled. But the clean side, which is associated with the dry sump tank and the passenger side valve cover, is rarely addressed. But you know, it is pretty important, especially because most of the centrifugal kits just deadhead that side of the PCV and just kind of plug it up, which is obviously not optimal. You know, you need to be able to get clean air into the engine. So I'm going to go over what I did. I used some Mighty Mouse products and Hellcat. I used some Mighty Mouse products, and it really, you know, I'm happy with how it came out. So I'll go over the install, my thoughts behind what I did and why I did it, and hopefully it'll be helpful for anybody that is kind of not really sure what to do with the clean side of the PCV and doesn't want to just kind of block it out like most of the kits do. So let's get into it. All right, guys. So the first thing is, like I said, I already had the Mighty Mouse Wild can for this centrifugal blower setup. I really like this product. You know, it's treated me well. What initially attracted me to it was that it has this little check valve inside the filter itself, so it can, you know, maintain vacuum and also relieve pressure when it's needed. That to me set this can apart from every other one. With that being said, when you have a dry sump system, you know, like I said, this video is going to be primarily applicable to dry sump systems. You have the vent that goes from the dry sump tank, and typically on the naturally aspirated, you know, from the factory, it will go into the inlet. But once you switch over to boost, that inlet is now the inlet to a supercharger, so it's going to be under extreme vacuum during boost, which couldn't be at the worst time, because this is the clean side of your PCV. So this is what's going to be letting clean air into your engine. So if the outlet that is going to allow clean air in is under vacuum, obviously, you know, you're not going to be getting the best scenario for letting clean air in, because it's sucking out. So what a lot of people do, and what I did for a while, is, you know, you can just rig up a little filter on the end of a hose. But to me, I didn't like the idea of, you know, just having a filter on there. It's not, even though this is just venting to atmosphere essentially, I still would like some sort of separator on it, just to basically pull any, you know, potential moisture away from the hose that's going to the sump tank that I can, you know. And obviously, you know, you can't do everything, but it just is another way to mitigate any potential problems. So I'm going to be going over adding one of Mighty Mouse's race can to this application to try to solve that problem. And another thing I'm going to go over in the process is, you know, if you've worked on these dry sump cars, you know that this little guy right here is a problem. Anytime you try to pull that out, you know, it's kind of, you're holding your breath hoping the little plastic tabs don't break. So I'm going to show you a solution to that I do on customers' cars. And it really is a nice, easy, clean way to fix that and never have to worry again. Especially, you know, if you're like me, I'm working on, these cars all the time. So when you're having to pull that thing out every time you do a job, it really does get to be a pain in the butt, worrying about it breaking. Which, if it does, it's not the end of the world. These valve covers are baffled on the inside, so the plastic is not going to make its way down into the valve train. If it were to break off, you could just pull the valve cover off and dump it out, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I'll show you what the inside of these valve covers look like later in the video. But let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is change the single can setup to my dual can setup, and that is a different mount that is sold on the Mighty Mouse website. So let's break and get that in there. And I'm not going to go through the bolt by bolt installation of all these parts, because one, I'm assuming if you're getting this far and doing it yourself, I don't need to walk you through every single bolt. And two, if you are in a situation where you need something like that, I really don't want to take on the liability of you doing something incorrectly and then coming back on me. But I'm going to give you the best illustrations I can, and let's get this second can put on. All right, so we've got the new can mount in there. We've got both cans in. I think it looks really great. They're in there, solid. These aren't going anywhere. No doubt in my mind they're not gonna move at all, even with a hard bump in the road. So I put the draft can or race can in the back. So that's going to be going to the dry sump tank, and it's going to be my clean air source. And then this is just the wild can that I had in there before, and that's going to hook up to the PCV system exactly how it was before. Just because it's in a slightly different location, I may have to make some adjustments on the plumbing and hose length. But yeah, so far so good. Let's go get the plumbing taken care of and we'll be back. All right, we've got the plumbing back in, and I've got the Mighty Mouse wild can up front, and then my draft can or the race can in the back. So of course I've got the PCV from the valve cover coming into the Mighty Mouse wild can, and then coming off of it is the plumbing that goes to my intake manifold. But also in there is the check valve, and then of course the blow off valve is teed in front of the check valve. And also I have a boost gauge, boost reference running inside the car for a boost gauge. For the draft can or race can, I've got it going over to the dry sump tank. And this was kind of the whole purpose of this video, to alleviate or mitigate rather the issues that would go with putting it into the inlet like it would if it was naturally aspirated. But with a centrifugal setup, it's just not really feasible or smart to do it that way, in my opinion. I really like the way this turned out. The dual mount that I got from Mighty Mouse works really well. Plenty of room. I've got space everywhere, and I think it looks pretty cool. I'm excited to go give it a rip. But first, we've got some other things to address on the passenger side as well. And let's go over and take a look. All right, so like I said earlier in the video, we're going to take care of the issues caused by that little guy right there. So the first thing that we need to do in order to address that is get the valve cover off of the engine. So let's go ahead and pull the valve cover off, and we'll pick it back up from there. All right, so we've got the valve cover off, and I just thought I'd include a quick little snippet of the valve train and the lifters if you've never seen it on your engine before. I think it looks pretty neat. Yeah, good time to just check it out and make sure everything looks healthy. But let's get over to the bench with the valve cover. All right, once you have the valve cover removed and on the bench, the piece is almost perfect for a metric tap. I went with 16 by 1.5 and it's perfect. You just are going to make a pass with a regular tap, then you're going to make a pass with your bottoming tap. And what I did was I just rolled some tape and stuffed it down in there, sticky side out to catch everything. And then you can rig up a vacuum to get the rest of it out. If you've never seen the back of this cover, there's a lot of baffles on it. I put the tape on there for the purpose of blowing some of the shavings out, but you can also put some Vaseline on the taps and that'll help catch some of the shavings, but I didn't want to deal with cleaning them up. But yeah, you know, it has plenty of threads to hold it in. And then you can just get an adapter. Like I said, I got the 16 by 1.5, and then I've got a -8 and on there. And you can do whatever size you want, but I found for the actual vent there that 16 by 1.5 is the ticket. And then you just throw some thread sealant on it, some high temp thread sealant, and you'll be good to go. No more worrying about breaking tabs off in there. All right, I've got my AN fitting in there now. The threads were plenty deep, more than I needed. And I have a little O-ring seated in, because what's really cool is this does not just go straight down. At the very top, there's a little flare, almost like a V. So an O-ring just seats in there perfectly. I'm very confident that this will never leak. Threw some said thread sealant in there, and it's good to go. One thing I would recommend that I didn't mention before is when you do this job, get yourself a little snake camera. This is a little snake camera. You know, you can get them for 20 bucks on eBay or Amazon, whatever. Let me get it into focus. This one, I've had this one for the better part of a decade. This is the brand. That way you can, you know, pipe your little snake camera down in there and just make sure that you don't have any metal shavings left over. But yeah, we'll pick it back up on the car. All right, so we've got our valve cover on. We've got our new AN fitting in place. That's gonna really make it easier to work with. I really like doing this modification on these dry sump cars. So now we got to do our plumbing. So we're just going to take it from the sump. We're going to make a Y and go to the new AN fitting and also the front of the valve cover PCV port. So let's go get those together. And I will say that, you know, it's not necessary. You can definitely use just your standard, you know, plastic Y splitters. I think it looks really cool with the Y blocks and the different AN fittings you can use. So that's the route I'm going to go with this. And also it just makes it a lot easier to disassemble and reassemble if you need to for any reason. So I'm going to go get those together and we'll come back and see it on the car. So we've got all the plumbing back in. I've got my little Y there. So it comes around into the sump tank there, sweeps around and attaches to this Y block. I've got it going into the portion that started all this that always, you know, has a tendency to break, and now it's an AN fitting, so it's solid. It'll never break again. Then the other portion of the Y is going to my valve cover PCV in the front. And I also kind of updated that hose to match the other ones. I put some hose sleeves on these just to tie it all together and make it look nice. But yeah, I really like doing this because now you have to take this piece off. It's just a quick connect there, a quick connect there, and then you undo the AN fitting there. You know, just get it started with a wrench, and then you can twist it the rest of the way off, and it comes out in one solid piece. And you're free to do whatever you want to do there, whatever job you might be working on. So it's a nice way to do things. But yeah, the reason that I left this up a little bit off of that and didn't tuck it in is in the event that you have to, let's say you live in a county that does car inspections, obviously that might jump out at an inspector. So I did order some of the recirculating tops for these as well, and I'm going to also go over how to install those and where I'm going to tie them in back to the air system without having to mess with going into the inlet or charge pipe. You know, I don't want to deal with vacuum or boost. I want kind of a relatively pressure neutral environment. So that's where I'm going to tie those into, but still kind of, I don't want to say under the appearance of it tying back into the PCV system, but it is going to tie back into it a little bit. So that will be a video for another day. And I hope everything was helpful. I'm really happy with how everything came out. And I think it gives it a nice look. I think after I do a little cleaning of the engine bay, it's a little dusty. The new hose sleeves and the new piping and plumbing that I did will come together for a really nice cohesive look. But feel free to shoot me any questions you might have, and I hope this was helpful. And once again, very satisfied and happy with all the Mighty Mouse products that I used in this particular job. So 10 out of 10. I definitely recommend it.